And she said that home is not a dock that you are tied to, but it is a harbor from which you sail. Welcome to the Kickass Couples Podcast. This is the place where we help committed couples who want to level up their marriage experience newfound clarity, hope, and confidence. We're Matthew and Kim, co-hosts and husband and wife.
In 26 years together, we've seen a lot and never thought it could be as good as it is right now. We're here to help you successfully navigate the messy, dirty, and wonderful world of marriage.
We believe all couples deserve and are capable of experiencing an extraordinary and fulfilling marriage. And each week, we're bringing you life lessons from real-life successful couples to help you grow and strengthen your relationship.
We'll get started right after this message.
If you want to learn how to experience the best, most fulfilling year of your marriage, we invite you to order Matthew's new book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. You can get it at Amazon.com or visit Matthew's website, www.matthewphoffman.com. Again, that's Amazon.com or www.matthewphoffman.com. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the Kickass Couples Podcast. We are excited to be with you today on a special episode on selflessness, which is one of the 14 pillars that we have at Kickass Couples Nation. It's one of the 14 key qualities that we really feel strongly are part of every successful relationship. And I want to read a quote to you that came out of the Good Book. And I think this does a wonderful job of kind of framing our conversation today. This is from Philippians 2, chapters 3 through 4. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interest, but each of you to the interests of the others. I thought that did a great job.
I love that quote. That's an awesome quote.
Why do you love it?
Why? I mean, putting others before yourself, I think, is a difficult thing to do. But I believe that when we put it into practice, it makes us a better person and it makes us feel good about putting others first. So I think it really helps our well-being.
Oh, I think you're right. We're going to get some statistical, empirical proof on that concept that you just shared a little later on in our discussion today. But so, Kim, tell me, why do you think this is one of our 14 pillars? Let's get into the why. Why is selflessness so important in a thriving relationship?
First of all, I think it's one of the more difficult pillars, right? Because I believe by nature, we all tend to be a little selfish. You've seen that in your kids when they're little and they're growing up. And I think even as adults, we carry some of that with us. So I think being selfless is challenging. But in a marriage, in a relationship with our children, in business, being selfless is huge. And I, again, think putting others before yourselves, it really does help us personally and professionally. And it really helps our relationship to thrive, and it shows we're committed.
I would agree. And I think another pillar we have is servant leadership. And I think being selfless and really modeling, I'm a firm believer that in your number one relationship, everything you do, you're modeling to your partner, to your spouse, hopefully, not always, but hopefully what a good, strong, solid relationship should look like. So when you're modeling servant leadership and you are really being selfless and putting yourself out there for your partner again and again, not only are they getting the benefit, Kim, of whatever it is you do, but you're modeling what that unconditional love looks like, what appreciation looks like, what selflessness looks like, and you're showing them what it can be. And it really paves the way by example of what you can expect to get back from your partner.
I agree.
So, Kim, why should I strive to be more selfless in my relationship? Kind of like, what's in it for me? WIIFM. Why is that something that I would want to do in my relationship? Or how would I benefit when I am more selfless to others?
Well, I think, first of all, it's going to confirm your commitment to the relationship. And you are also going to feel valued. You're going to feel heard and loved and seen. So I really think it validates the relationship and shows that we're in it 100%.
I agree. I think it ties directly back to commitment. It also helps me as an individual when I'm not acting out of self-interest. It kind of helps me tie into more of my heart and soul, who I am, because I'm doing it based on who I am as opposed to my own ego or what am I going to get out of it when I'm focusing on that service aspect of others. And I think that does go directly to demonstrating incredible commitment in a relationship when you consistently, selflessly pour into somebody else. So, in thinking about kind of some synonyms and antonyms or, what other people might think selflessness is or isn't, I think, we've got a little list here that we can talk about. I think a synonym, no,
A synonym.
synonym of being selfless would be altruistic. In other words, someone who is looking for the good inherently and the goodness in somebody else, as opposed to someone who is merciless in a relationship, like wants to get what they got and is willing to take their partner out if that's necessary, as long as they win.
Yeah. I think somebody that's loving and kind is another synonym.
Yeah, I think magnanimous, someone who is, if you think about the way you love, you don't want to be stingy. And being selfless means that you are grand in your giving, magnanimous, giving more than you need to because it's who you are, but also because that's how much you love your partner or your spouse.
Yeah. What about generosity? I feel like generosity is a big one. Being generous with your love, with your affection, with yourself.
Yeah, I think you have to treat selflessness and the generosity as if you have an inexhaustible supply or resource that you'll never run out. Because I think the more you give, the more you receive, and you get replenished by reflection, right? And in a relationship, it's going to be, think about if only one partner is giving and giving and giving magnanimously, generously in a relationship, eventually there's going to be a huge imbalance. It'll be pretty glaring. So it really calls the other partner to give in that same way. And so I think you truly do get back when you are showing that yourself.
Sure. And, we talked a little bit earlier about why we should be more selfless. And there is some scientific background as to why we should do that and what happens when we do it. The Psychological Bulletin says that researchers explored communal motivation, that people who are higher in communal motivation tend to be especially concerned about other people, and this concern motivates them to care for others. So people who are concerned about others have a higher sense of well-being. But I think what is important to point out is that you have to first respect your own needs. So we're not saying, or they're not saying, you abandon yourself, but it's important to take care of yourself so that you can have this higher sense of well-being to care for others.
Right. I think, Kim, you tap on an important concept. I think that if you're going to be the most effective in being selfless for somebody else, you have to be a little selfish first, meaning you got to get your own needs met. Being selfless is not about being a doormat. It's not about squeezing every last bit of lifeblood out of yourself in service to somebody else so you're wrecked, because that's not sustainable. It's not win-win. And if it doesn't win for both people in the relationship, then it's not a win. So I think the same study also said in those with unmitigated care for others, they did not report higher states of well-being and satisfaction. So in that same study where people just gave and gave and gave and gave without any boundaries, it wasn't good for them. They didn't get the benefit because they burned themselves out at the expense of trying to be that be-all, end-all for their partner. And I think it's
sort of like that oxygen mask theory. Do you want to tell our listeners about that?
Yeah.
You use that one a lot.
I know. Well, when you're on the airplane, there's a reason why they tell you to put your mask on first, because if you don't take care of yourself first and you're trying to help somebody else, you may not be around to do so. So take care of yourself first, spend some time there investing. And, there's kind of some myths, I think, and some things that people think they shouldn't do or accept for themselves. And one of those, Kim, is that everybody needs to understand and accept that they are worthy and deserving of putting themselves first. If you do that, it doesn't mean you're not being selfless, you're not being supportive, you're not being a good spouse, but it means that you have value and worth, and you're not going to violate yourself in an attempt to try to help somebody else.
When it comes to creating a kick-ass marriage, do you ever wonder what you could be doing better? Have you ever thought how helpful it would be to be a part of a like-minded community of other imperfect couples who want to level up in their number one relationship? Come visit Kickass Couples Nation, where you can talk with people just like you who are looking for ways to invest in and increase their joy, commitment, and fulfillment in their most important human relationship. You'll have access to a team of licensed marriage therapists, coaches, articles, podcasts, live webinars, and more. Just visit MatthewPHoffman.com so you can learn more about a community that's ready to help you level up. That's MatthewPHoffman.com so you can become of the growing Kick-Ass Couples Nation right now.
Yeah. I think it's also important that we are able to communicate with our spouse and establish really realistic expectations of the relationship and what we're going to, give and take from each other.
Yeah, we have to be willing to put limitations. I mean, if your spouse is asking you to do something that you're not comfortable with, or you think there's no way in heck that you could supply or do, it's futile to try to take that on. We've got to be realistic about our limitations, but not held back by them. Not say, well, I can't because, but, really working to try to meet those expectations as long as they're communicated and agreed upon and good for both people in the relationship.
Sure. I would love to talk a little bit with our listeners about what it means to be truly selfless in a relationship. I think that this is an area that I have grown in personally a lot. I used to be somebody who was a little bit more quid pro quo, like, okay, if I do this for him, what's he going to do for me? I feel like it wasn't until I was able to be truly joyous in my giving and truly selfless in my giving that I was able to really reap the benefit of that and really enjoy our relationship and enjoy taking time to do things for you that I know that you would appreciate.
Yeah, I think that you have to be, there's no quid pro quo, right? It's not if
you can't
then.
Keep track.
It's not conditional. I think that in selfless relationships, there's no tracking, and you're not saying, well, I'll do this if, or I'll do this only when you, and I think that that's a huge thing. And, it's also about convenience. I think that we all get a little irked sometimes when we're asked or we're faced with something we have to do for our partner in our relationship that might be inconvenient. Oh my gosh, I was going to do that. I don't have time. It's going to put undue pressure on me. And I think being willing to be inconvenienced for your partner is a good thing, not a bad thing, because it means you're there unconditionally and that you're going to get them no matter what. And there's what's more important, unless it's a health and wellness issue or life safety for your kids or somebody else, there's really no one else that should be coming first, and you should be prioritizing your partner and joyfully giving,
Sure.
even when it's not convenient.
Well, I know that there's sometimes that you're tired but you're thinking to yourself, okay, I know that my husband's love language is touch, and we're going to sit down and we're going to watch a football game, or maybe we're going to watch this movie. It'd be really nice if I probably rubbed his feet right now. Not that I'm like dying to rub his feet.
Oh, come on.
But I know.
Come on, admit it.
I know.
That's one of your favorite activities.
I know how much you love it and how much touch is important to you. And I know what that does for you and your sense of well-being also. And so I do it. And I do it without expectation or without, thinking that I need to get a foot rub in return, because I feel like I've learned that when I joyously do this for you, you naturally will do it for me.
Right.
It just comes natural. The more you give to somebody and you pour into somebody, they just automatically pour back into you.
And I love the fact, Kim, that you don't complain about it. You don't do something for me that you're saying you choose to do, and then going, oh my gosh, I just did this for you.
Never.
How come you don't do that for me? How come you couldn't? Or you get huffy or angry that you gave of yourself when it was your choice to do that. I think that's another important point about being truly selfish is don't do something for your partner and then hold resentment that you either had to do it or did it, or you don't feel like they appreciated you enough for what you did. I think you've got to let go of that and just give because it's right to give. And It does come back. I mean, do you feel And in our relationship, do you see me giving back to you when you do those things? And do you feel like you get that back?
Yeah. One of the things that I just dislike doing is emptying a dishwasher. It just is one of those things. But you will take on some of my chores or things that I would normally do, knowing that it is something that I dislike. And you do that because you are selfless.
Yeah. Well, I
So it's
appreciate
just
that.
an example of something
Yeah.
that you do for me that I appreciate.
And I think another thing to remember about being selfless is that the company always trumps the activity. So even though I may not love to go listen to a certain person in concert, if I know my wife does, then I am glad to be there with her doing something that she likes because it's important to her. So it doesn't matter so much what we do, and it's my favorite activity, but that I'm doing something together with her, and I know the activity brings her joy, and so I'm willing to let her shine and take the lead in an activity because that's
it
less
might be a
important.
concert or a movie, but whatever it is, we all have different things that we love and that we like. And when our spouse is willing to sort of, put our wife or our husband first in their choice for that evening of what we're going to do, even picking a restaurant, right? It's as simple as that. And I think that the more we do that for each other, the more committed we are, the more we increase our intimacy with each other. We hit so many other pillars in our relationship when we do that.
We do. And I think, it's all about love. And there's a Stephen Curtis Chapman song. It's all about love, love, love. And it really is all about love. And we want to make sure that we're being loving in a selfless way. And we talked about this earlier, but, giving love unconditionally, giving love should be more about who you are. And that's why you're doing it as opposed to an obligation. You're not doing it for somebody because, right? And so for your partner to receive it and feel that way, if it is because it's out of your genuine desire to express love, that is how it will be received. How a gift is given is how it's received. And there's nothing worse than someone giving you a gift they don't really want to give you, or they're having reservations, or they're not authentic about it. And that does come true. So that's kind of a watch out when you're loving your partner and doing things for them. If it's not out of a genuine desire, it's really a difficult thing to mask, and it kind of taints the giving. It makes it pretty unauthentic, I think.
Well, convenient loving is pretty obvious, I think, in a relationship, and it's sad. And so we want to make sure we're not in the habit of convenient loving, that we're loving all the time and expressing that.
And that can show up in a lot of ways. Kim, you talked about
Absolutely.
A couple earlier, like you said, emptying the dishwasher. If I did that for you giving touch is important to both of us. Face rubs or tickles or foot rubs. What are some other ways, what are other ways that you see me or you giving love to me in our relationship? What are some of the, we want to share some other things with our listeners about how they might do that. I like to cook. And so one way I show love.
Meals are 100%.
And food's important to me too. So it is a little self-serving there, no doubt. But I think one of the most loving things you can do for somebody is share a meal with them, because you have to eat. But when it's a nice experience and the table is set and the lights are right and there's nice music, or maybe there's a nice bottle of wine, or, you're kind of creating that experience, I think that's a great love giving experience. And Kim and I entertain a lot, and we love entertaining because we like opening up our home and expressing and sharing that love with others, and they feel it, and they enjoy the food certainly. But I think that's a good example. Can you think of any other ways that you and I do that?
Hospitality is such a gift. I think we hit on some of them really already. Just you allowing me to pick a movie that we're going to go to. Hey, I want you to pick tonight. I don't need to pick you. You decide what that's going to be. Where do you want to go to dinner? Even if it's a fun activity that we're going to do together, maybe you don't love ice skating and I do. And you say, well, let's go ice skating. I feel like we have to really put our spouse's favorite things and things that are important to them ahead of ourselves. Sometimes I'm not saying do it all the time, right? Got to take care of you for sure. But being selfless in your relationship is, it's big. It really is.
And I want to give everybody a watch out. Something that Kim and I ran up against a few years ago, 5-6 years ago in our relationship, is, and this is a watch out because it's so easy. Life can seem to take over with kids, with careers, with volunteering, people that need your help. Could be your kid's school, could be other community organizations, your church even. And we feel that when we're called or asked to do something and the cause is worthy, then if we don't do it, then we are not living up to our highest potential, or we're letting our partner down, our spouse down, or even, we're letting others down, and it's not acceptable. And I think we have to make sure that your giving to others is not at the expense of your number one relationship. I think our biggest mistake, Kim and I, and one of the biggest mistakes we made, is we had a false sense of responsibility for others and other organizations. They're all worthy and deserving, but they weren't more worthy and deserving than our relationship. And we got to a point where we took away the time that we had together to relate, to work, to invest, and we kept giving of our first fruits to others instead of giving of our first fruits to each other.
We were in the habit of really giving each other leftovers, honestly. We kind of each had our own little vortexes going in our own little worlds. But I know that once we realized that we really needed to protect that time and to protect our relationship and be selfish about our relationship, that things really did change for us.
No doubt. So that's just a watch out as you're thinking about all the ways you're expressing love to your partner, your spouse, and to others, is to make sure that you've got your priorities straight and who gets the most and first. And that comes before your family, your extended family, your kids. You don't want to, again, give your leftovers to your spouse because you've given it all to your kids or your siblings or your parents, grandparents, whatever it may be.
And that's what this podcast is all about, right? We talk about prioritization, really prioritizing your number one commitment to your spouse.
Yeah. My mom had a quote that I want to share with you all. And she said that home is not a dock that you are tied to, but it is a harbor from which you sail. When you think about your number one relationship at home with your partner, your spouse, you're not tied to it. It's not keeping you in. You're not losing, but you're taking all that goodness and you are sailing out. And you always have that home to come home to, but you're bringing the goodness with you and using it to bless, love, share, and enrich others. So it's that number one human relationship that gives you the strength and the ideas and the energy and the overflowing love that you can then take. It's not a limiter. It's not holding you back. It's not keeping you from your purpose, but it's where your purpose can start and emanate from.
I love that thought and that idea of your home being a protective harbor. I think that is a beautiful demonstration.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff on selflessness, and
I agree.
And there's opportunities. We have been working at it in our relationship for almost 29 years, married 28, and we still have a lot to learn. And I catch myself all the time. And I tell you what, I'm in the habit of catching my wife doing good. I see her demonstrate. I'm looking for the way she's selfless in our relationship, and then recognizing it and expressing gratitude for it. And it just, when I do that for her, I know it makes her want to be more selfless to me. And it becomes a beautiful self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's a beautiful dance, honestly.
It is.
I think that is a great point that you just brought up. When you see your spouse expressing that selflessness and actively doing those things, I think expressing gratitude is huge. We have to say thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely more important to me, and I'm going to take the liberty. I know it's more important to Kim about who we're being for others and for each other than what we are getting, earning, or attaining for ourselves. The victories of getting stuff are so shallow and they don't last long. But when you have a victory in a relationship and you know that the strength of who you are is being recognized and magnified, it makes you want to show up more. And that's where the rewards come from, the experiences and the beauty that lasts when the luster of all those other things, money, possessions, have faded or become tarnished.
That's what really gives you a beautiful life together.
So we encourage you to think about maybe some of these things we've talked about today. How can you use it? Sit down, have a discussion with your partner. And if you feel that you need help or you're not sure where to start or you want to look at more resources, please come visit us at Kickass Couples Nation. You can go to MatthewPHoffman.com where you can access all our podcasts, our past episodes, behind the scenes content. We'd love to talk to you and see how we can help you reach your dreams, overcome those obstacles and find your own relationship nirvana.
Thanks for listening, everyone. And remember, happily ever after doesn't just happen. It's on purpose.
That's all we've got for this episode of the Kickass Couples Podcast. If you like the content of this show, you'll love Matthew's newly released book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. To receive a digital mini book of quotes and images from the book, all you have to do is rate this show and leave a review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen. Then email us a screenshot of your review at podcast@kickasscouplespodcast.com, and we'll get it over to you right away. Until next time, remember, happily ever after doesn't just happen, it's on purpose.